students, hope you are fine. As you know, we are reading a lesson titled We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together. Today we will be discussing from para 4th, page 14. Now let us start. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. With an ominous silence, the word dropped, and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a growling roar, and an enormous cloud towered aft of the ship. With horror, I realized that it was not a cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. It appeared perfectly vertical and almost twice the height of the other waves, with a frightful breaking crest. That says that the first indication of impending disaster came. That the first indication of the disaster was it started at 6 p.m. The first indication of the disaster happened at 6 p.m. with an ominous silence, with an unpleasant silence. The फर्स्ट इंडिकेशन ऑफ द डिज़ास्टर जो तूफ़ान जो आया समंदर में और जब हम शिप में सफ़र कर रहे थे तो ये डिज़ास्टर जो है ये कब आया. इट हैपनेड एट 6 p.m. with an ominous silence with an unpleasant silence, with an unpleasant and threatening silence. The silence was unpleasant and it was threatening silence. The wind dropped. It says that the wind dropped. It becomes less. The wind becomes less, and the sky immediately grew dark. That says that the sky it grows dark. It grows dark. The sky, the wind dropped, and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a grambling roar. Then what I observed, then came a grambling roar. Then came a deep cry, and an enormous cloud towered after the ship, and a huge cloud came over the ship. That says that what happened after this, a growing roar, that means a deep cry, and a huge cloud came over the end side of the ship. Aft means end side of the ship. With horror, I realized that it was not cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. That says it was with horror. It was terrible. With fear, डर के मारे, I realized it that it was not a cloud. ये कोई cloud नहीं है. But what is it? But a wave like no other. What I had ever seen. ये कोई wave जैसा था जो मैंने कभी नहीं देखा है. Which I had ever seen. It appeared perfectly vertical and almost twice the height of the other waves. Actually, this wave, it appeared perfectly. It was vertical. It appeared perfectly vertically, and almost twice the height of the other waves. Its height was the twice the height of the other waves, with a frightful breaking crest. And it was with a frightful breaking crest, and it break it fearfully the top of the ship. It with a frightful breaking the crest, it was actually its top was fearful. The crest, that means the top of the wave, not the top of the ship, not but the top of the wave. It was fearful. So here are some words. Impending. Impending here means about to happen. About to happen. Ominous silence means unpleasant or threatening silence. Aft means near the stem, near the stern of the ship. Near the stern of the ship. Frightful means very unpleasant or shocking. Crest means reach the top of a wave. Reach the top of a wave. Let me explain it. This stanza again. These lines again. Around 6 p.m. That says around 6 p.m. an unpleasant silence or rolled over. It was an indication of a disaster which was about to happen. The wind suddenly dropped and the sky was darker with heavy clouds. A huge cloud, right? It says a huge cloud was coming towards the stern of the ship, but later the narrator realized that it was a huge wave. The wave was perfectly vertical and it was twice the height of the previous waves they have they saw, with the top of the waves looking unpleasant to its height. Right? Now the roar the roar increased to a thunder. The roar increased to a thunder as the stern moved up the face of the wave. The roar, that means this loud sound, roaring sound, increased to a thunder. It increased to a thunder. It was now actually it was a thundering sound as the stern moved up the face of the wave. As the stern up the face of the wave, as it as the stern, that means how it moved up the face of the wave. That means as the ship moved up to the face of the wave, and for a moment I thought we might ride over it. We thought that we would cross this wave. The roar increased to a thunder. That means the rave, the intensity, the magnitude of the ray of the wave was increased, and it became now the thunder. It was not it now the thundering sound came out from the wave as the stern moved up the face of the wave, as our front side of the this our ship, it moved towards the wave, and for a moment I thought we might ride over it, and कुछ लम्हों के लिए मैंने सोचा शायद कि इसको हम पार करेंगे. But the tremendous explosion shook, but a great bursting noise that shook the deck, that shook the roof of the ship. What happened? A great explosion shook, a bursting noise shook the deck. It shook the roof of the uh, roof of this ship. A torrent of green and white water broke over the ship. My head smashed into the wheel, and I was aware of flying overboard and sinking below the waves. But a tremendous explosion shook, but a bursting noise shook the deck. It actually shook the deck. It shook the roof of the deck, roof of the ship. A torrent of green, a torrent of green, a torrent of green and water, a torrent of green and white water broke over the ship. My head smashed. That means a large amount of water. Torrent means a large amount of water of which was of color green and water, and that white and green that flow over the ship. A torrent of green and white water broke over. That means a colored water of white, of green and water and green and this white that flow over. But this was large amount of water. The large amount of water which was of the color green and white that flew all over the ship. My head smashed. My head crashed into the wheel, and I was aware of flying overboard, and I was aware of that means I was conscious of flying over ship and sinking below the waves, and I was sure that I will follow over the ship and I might sink below the waves. I accepted my approaching death. Now I accepted, I confessed that the death is very very close to me, and as I was losing consciousness, and right near it says that I was losing the sense. जब मुझे होश ही नहीं रहा, I felt quite peaceful, और मैं आराम से क्या मैं बेहोश हो गया. Now there are some words that is tremendous means very great in amount. Shook means past tense of shake, that is vibrate. Deck means a floor of a ship. Torrent means a fast moving stream of water. Torrent, fast moving stream of water. Smashed means shattered or violently broken. Let me explain these lines. The roar increased it into a thunder. Right? Narrator says the roar increased it into a thunder as the stern moved up the pace of the wave, and for a moment thought we might ride over it, but then a tremendous explosion shook the deck. A torrent of green, a fast moving stream of water, green and white water, broke over the ship. My head smashed into the wheel, and I was aware of flying overboard and sinking below the waves. The right says that I accepted my approaching death. That means my death is now approaching, and I was losing consciousness. I felt quite peacefully. Here right says there is the thunder increased it, and the wave moved the stern up. They thought that it would do any damage, but a huge explosion vibrated the deck. A strong moving storm of green and white water broke over the ship. The narrator's head smashed in the wheel of the ship. He flew overboard and sank below the waves. He accepted that his death was approaching and started losing his sense. He felt quite peaceful. Now, unexpectedly, unexpectedly, my head pooped out of the water. A few meters away, Waymaker was near capsizing. Her masts almost horizontal. Then a wave hurled her upright. My lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed it, the guard rails, and sailed through the air into the wave-waker's main boom. Subsequent wave tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. My left rib cracked, my mouth filled with blood and uh, and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel lined. Somehow I found the wheel lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. Water, water everywhere, water everywhere. I could feel that the ship had water below, but I dared not abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, the front hatch was thrown open, and Mary appeared. We are sinking, she screamed. The decks are smashed. We are full of water. Take the wheel, I shouted as I scrambled for the hatch. Unexpectedly, my head pooped out of the water. It says that it was unexpected. My head moved up. That means my head popped out. That means my head moved up suddenly of the water. Water से थोड़ा ऊपर उठा मेरा ये सर. एंड व्हाट हैपेंड a few meters away, थोड़ी थोड़ी कुछ meters दूरी पे थे. Wow, waymaker was near capsizing. It was soaking, it was sinking. Her mast was sinking, her flags, इसके जो झंडे जो थे वो सिंक हो रहे थे, डूबने वाले थे. Almost horizontal, they were horizontal now. It seemed to narrate that the flags of the ship of the wave walker or they are now flat, they are now sinking into the water. Then a wave hurled her upright. A wave. Now again a wave threw away this wave maker upright. खड़ा कर दिया इसको. My lifeline jerked. That means my lifeline jacket. It grew. It grew tight. It grew tight. My lifeline jerked. That means this lifeline jacket. It was now tight. Taut jerked cap. That means it was now it was grown now tight. Now that means this lifeline jacket becomes tight. I grabbed the guard rails. I caught the guard rails. That means the protecting things, and sailed through the air into the wave waker's main boom. That means I what happened? Uh, I grabbed the guard rails. I caught that means I hold I caught the protecting things and sailed through the air, or I sailed into the through the air into the wave walker's main boom. That means the I approached up to the wave walker's main boom. Subsequent waves tossed me. There were so many. There were other waves which tossed me, which threw me up around the deck like a rag doll. That means they were tossing me, they were throwing me up just like a torn doll. जिस तरह एक गुड़िया होती है, जो फटी हुई गुड़िया होती है, उसी तरह उसको जब ऊपर नीचे करते हैं, इसी तरह इस waves they were tossing me, they were throwing me up and down just like the torn doll. My left ribs, that means my curved bones, they cracked, वो टूट गए. मेरी जो curved ribs थे, bones थे curved, so वो टूट गई. और वो my left ribs cracked, that means my left ribs, the curved bones, they cracked. My mouth filled with blood, my mouth was filled with blood, and broken teeth means my teeth were now broken. Somehow I found the wheel line it. Somehow I found that the wheel is now in position up the stern for next wave and hung on. Then I hung on because I found that the wheel was now in position. Water everywhere. I could feel that the ship had water below. Now I found water everywhere in the ship. I feel that the ship had water below on the below side of the water, below side of the wave walker. There is water, but I dared no abandon the wheel to investigate. But I leave no nothing. But I dared not to leave. I dare not to leave the wheel to investigate. So that I do not to leave the position, so that I may investigate the wheel. What is it is now latest position. Now suddenly the front hatch was thrown open and Mary appeared. At front hatch, that means the door in the deck, it was now opened and Mary appeared. मैरी जो है इस फ्रंट जो डोर इसका था वो ओपन हो गया और मैरी appeared वहाँ हो गई. We are sinking now. We are sinking. She screamed. That means she cried. She cried. Mary cried that we are sinking. हम डूब रहे हैं. The decks are smashed. We are full of water. The decks are smashed. These decks are now they are broken and we are full of water. There is water in the ship. Actually, these are the words of Mary who appeared from the door in deck. So uh, there are some words. There are some words. Let me tell you the meaning of these words. Capsizing means the overturned in the water. Hurled means throw with a great force. Taut. Taut means stretched or pulled tightly. Bow means pole that controls the angle and shape of the sail. Scrambled means climb, claws, claw one's way. Hatch means door. Let me again explain these lines. The narrator actually here says that his head popped out of water. The ship was about to the ship was about to overturn. The ship was about to overturn. This wavemaker was about to overturn, but a wave turned her upright. A wave turned this ship upright. His lifeline jacket was stretched. He grabbed the guardrails and sailed to the ship's main pole. The waves tossed him around the deck. He was injured as his left ribs cracked, his mouth filled with blood, and he had a broken tooth. He found the wheel lined the stern for the next wave and waited. There was water everywhere. The narrator could feel water below the ship, but he did not leave the wheel alone. Suddenly, the front door opened and his wife Mary came screaming that they were sinking. She said the decks or smashed were full of water. The narrator handed her the wheel and climbed towards the door. Larry and Herbs were pumping like madmen. Broken timbers hung at crazy angles. The whole starboard Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. Broken timbers hung at crazy angles. The whole starboard side bulged inwards. Clothes, crockery, charts, tins and toys sloshed about in deep water. I half swam, half crawled into the children's cabin. Are you all right? I asked. Yes, they answered from the upper bunk. But my head hurts a bit, said she, said Sue, pointing to a big bump above her eyes. Above her eyes, I had no time to worry about bumped heads. About finding a hammer, screws, and canvas, I struggled back on deck. थैंक यू वेरी मच. इट इज़ टुडेज़ टॉपिक कंप्लीट हो गया. होप आपने अंडरस्टैंड किया. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.